Stop right there. Before we start, I have to warn you that there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the 90s Sailor Moon anime or the Crystal 2014 reboot series or read the manga, do yourself a favor and consume them first. Meet Usagi Tsukino, who is also known as her, and maybe her, depending on which version you consume. At the start of the series, Usagi is just a normal schoolgirl going through all of the motions of being a teenager. She's late to school, forgets upcoming assignments, and mostly struggles with academia in general. If that wasn't enough stress for a teenager, she later discovers that she is Sailor Moon, the guardian of love and justice. As the main character of the show, she's the glue that holds everyone together while also juggling her two identities. Throughout the series, we also see her develop multiple bonds with others as well as finding the love of her life and even eventually becoming queen of everything, but we'll get to that later. With her iconic starting transformation phase, Moon Prism Power Make-up, Usagi's journey to queendom starts as she transforms into her Sailor Moon form. Of course, her journey starts out as rocky as you'd expect it to for a 14-year-old. However, as Sailor Moon, her newfound abilities help to ease her into her destiny. Later on in the series, it's discovered that Usagi is actually a reincarnation of Princess Serenity, who is the princess of the Moon Kingdom. Princess Serenity was in love with Prince Endymion, who also gets reincarnated as Mamoru in the series, and he was the Prince of Earth. They were very infatuated with each other, with Serenity often sneaking away from the moon to take glimpses of him. Tragically for them, they both end up dead, the events of which differ between the manga and Crystal and the 90s anime. In the manga and Crystal, one of the villains, Metalia, corrupts a lovesick Beryl, in love with Endymion, and in rage she tries to kill Princess Serenity, with Endymion taking the blow and getting murdered. In extreme grief, Princess Serenity then kills herself. Of course, later on it's revealed that Serenity was cursed as a baby by Nehelenia, a villain who appears later on in the franchise, who curses the kingdom to fall and Serenity with death before ever reaching the throne. In the 90s anime, Serenity and Endymion are murdered together by a jealous Queen Beryl, who actually just looks rather gleeful to have taken them both down. When more details of their demise come to light in the manga and Crystal, Usagi then vows to never be a tragic princess again, and after the final battle of the season, she makes a vow to move forward from that life, whereas she seems to frequently tap into that princess power in the 90s anime. This is where the 90s anime and the manga starts to slightly pivot narratively. In order to position herself as a guardian, Sailor Moon has quite a few upgrades throughout the series. At the end of the first arc in the manga and Crystal, Usagi proclaims that she wants to move forward in her life as Usagi, instead of just being the princess of the past. She feels empowered in her newfound role of being able to protect those that she loves, and in order to aid this wish, Usagi's transformation brooch and powers are upgraded by Queen Serenity, her mother in her past life, making her stronger than ever and cementing her desire to save her friends. With her new transformation phrase, Moon Crystal Power Make-up, named after her newfound ability to tap into the silver crystal's power, she moves forward. In contrast, in the 90s anime, Usagi doesn't unlock the second transformation until a bit into season 2. She actually has a bit of fatigue over being a guardian again after the events of season 1, and so her powers aren't working as intended. However, with the desire of saving her friends acting as a fuel for action, she is bestowed her second transformation by Queen Serenity, similar to the manga but with different circumstances. Much later into the second arc of the manga and the second series of the anime, we are introduced to another version of Usagi, Neo Queen Serenity. Neo Queen Serenity is the future version of Sailor Moon, who has the most monumental glow-up and manages to become ruler of the entire Earth. We learn that members of the Silver Millennium live to be approximately 1,000 years old, and they age at the same rate as humans until they reach adulthood, where they start to stop physically aging. At the ripe young age of 22, Usagi becomes queen. Unfortunately, we also learn that Neo Queen Serenity lost her ability to become Sailor Moon, but manages to harness enough power to bring some peace to the Earth, until they get attacked that is, Oops. Her abilities include being able to take full advantage of the silver crystal, extending her long lifespan to the rest of humanity. Her complete usage of the silver crystal allows her to also project herself even while being in a crystal stasis later on in the arc. In the manga version of events, her power is also grand enough to grant the Sailor Senshi new transformations and also give her past self a brand new brooch and rod, and title. She appears much more mature than Usagi, even though we still see some of Usagi's rash decision making still in her, like when she and her past self push the envelope of time and make the decision to meet each other, even though there could be space-time consequences to doing so. In the 90s anime, we also get more comedy snippets of her life via letters she sends to the past and stories from Diana. In Season 3, Sailor Moon once again undergoes a metamorphosis, with the manga version utilizing the new brooch her future self bestowed upon her, whereas the 90s anime had her and Mamoru create a new item based on their love for one another. She also gained a temporary new form in this third arc, Super Sailor Moon, a heightened, empowered version of her usual getup allowed by combining the powers of the Senshi into a Holy Grail artifact in the manga. By extension, as she grows in power, it also empowers the other Senshi who see visual upgrades such as heart brooches. She also unlocks this state in the 90s anime, although it's simply narratively tied to the introduction of the outer Senshi and their respective merchandisable talismans. In this version, she can use it freely without the other Senshi needing to be present or connected to her. She then temporarily loses access to this form in the 90s anime when she is convinced by Mistress 9 to hand the Holy Grail over and it gets destroyed. However, this leads to the iconic finale of that season where she ends up forcing the super transformation by utilizing the powers of the other Senshi, which is a nice tie-in to the manga. Over to the manga, Sailor Moon doesn't lose the Grail, but because of the Senshi being split up at the end of the third arc, it renders her super form void until she actively creates her own super transformation with her own will in the next arc. The 90s anime takes a different approach in that Pegasus has to empower her and Chibi Moon with this super transformation. It's in this fourth arc that the manga blesses us with yet another version of Sailor Moon, Eternal Sailor Moon. Similar to the Grail in Season 3, Eternal Sailor Moon comes to be when the power of the inner and the outer Senshi, now with their unlocked princess forms, combine and upgrade the Holy Grail into a new form. Its finality confirmed by Venus, who confusingly says, "The Holy Grail we've been searching for." The difference with this upgraded version is that she doesn't actively need the powers of the other Senshi to use it, making this form permanent. At this point, we learn that Eternal Sailor Moon is closest in power to Neo Queen Serenity. This form wasn't unlocked until the 5th season in the 90s anime, in a similar fashion to the manga with the Senshi combining their powers, but a much different context. Now, here is where the 90s anime ends its versions of Usagi, and we can say that she had a complete run. However, the manga and subsequently the Cosmos movie adaptation of it had a few more surprises waiting for us. Continuing our journey of the many forms of Sailor Moon, we get treated to 2 more versions of Usagi in the final arc. A mysterious girl with pigtails appears in the sky. No, we are not talking about Chibiusa from Season 2, but rather Chibi Chibi. Chibi Chibi is a great little mysterious character who follows Usagi around and provides her emotional support in the emotionally tumultuous final arc of the franchise. Throughout the arc, she continues to surprise us and other characters by her power, especially as she is a child. She manages to reverse Galaxia's hold on Sailor Moon, heal the surrounding environment, and also send Galaxia packing, showing us a fraction of her power. We also see her transform into a Guardian form and partake in other battles. In an intriguing and surprising twist, Chibi Chibi's true identity is revealed near the end of the manga, where we are introduced to the last version of Sailor Moon that will be covered in this video, Sailor Cosmos. Perhaps known as one of the most fascinating and debated characters in the Sailor Moon franchise, Sailor Cosmos is described as the ultimate version of Sailor Moon. While her full story is somewhat ambiguous, we glean that she is similar to Neo Queen Serenity, in that she is Sailor Moon from a future that she states is too distant to contemplate. She comes from a timeline where Chaos, the main enemy of the series, comes back as Sailor Chaos and brings ruin for a prolonged period of time. We learn that Cosmos had no hope of beating her and the damage done is too great for her to handle. Confused over what to do, she decides to run away to the past, thinking that she can change the events of time and have Usagi take a different route to her by destroying the galaxy cauldron where all life is born, instead of saving it like she did once before. She hopes that by doing this, she can prevent heartache for the current Sailor Moon and humanity, who would potentially have to go through similar events. However, by going back in time, Usagi ends up reminding her of her bravery and courage that she had long forgotten through an eternity of constant slaughter, and ends up renewing her hope once again for the future. Inspired, she even states that she can't be called Sailor Cosmos, as Eternal Sailor Moon in that moment showed qualities of a true Sailor Cosmos. Cosmos then returns back to her time with these renewed lessons. Sailor Cosmos' powers are very impressive, appearing even more powerful than Neo Queen Serenity appears. We have her going back in time, although not having full mastery over this, as she loses her memory for a while and becomes Chibi Chibi. Although even reduced to a child form, she still manages to transport Galaxia from Earth back to her palace and block multiple attacks from powerful enemies, giving us an extra inkling of how powerful she is in her true form. She also successfully brainwashes Usagi's family into believing Chibi Chibi is part of the family. We also have her sending the Amazoness Quartet into the future, showing her grasp on time. Sorry, Pluto. Interestingly, the 90s anime completely rewrites the story of Chibi Chibi while erasing Cosmos, making her essentially non-existent other than a silhouette at the end. But even then, Chibi Chibi was tied to being a part of Galaxia instead, who cast off her starseed in her own fight against Chaos, so we can't really count them as forms of Sailor Moon in this iteration of the series. So, there you have it, the different versions of Usagi, at least in the anime and the manga version of events. What a fitting roster of personalities for the lead character and the wonderful cycle of development that we get treated to throughout the series. Which version of Usagi is your favourite? Let me know in the comments, and if you liked this video, it would be great if you liked and subscribed so I can get an idea if it was well received. Thanks for watching, and I hope you continue to get lost in this series as much as I do.